I'm Adam Bilmes. I'm the co-founder and director of sales for Inspired Flight. I'm looking forward to talking to you all about building drones in the US and reshoring American manufacturing.
Hi everyone, I'm Greg from Pilot Institute. We train drone pilots all over the country.
Hi, my name is Haye from PiXL, where we cover all the drone news on our website.
Welcome to the latest episode of the PiXL Drone Show, our weekly podcast where we talk to industry professionals about what they do in the UAS space.
From professionals who use drone to fly inspection missions to public safety users or even drone light shows, you will learn on the PiXL Drone Show that drones are much more than just toys.
So what's going on?
Busy, but good. I'm gonna change up Drone Excel, and I'm working on that stuff behind the scenes. I'm gonna make it more focused on education and promoting what you can do to make money with drones. And obviously, you need a Part 107.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds good.
Yeah. So the idea is to steer more traffic your way and help people get their Part 107 for sure. But I need the homepage to be different. I want different categories and I want different parts of all the news articles to be easier accessible so people can find out about Part 107 or drones for good or things like that, some of the main topics.
Cool.
And I'm changing...
Oh, I said cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I want to change the email sign up and the email newsletter and all that. So there's quite a bit going on behind the scenes. But once I'm done with that, I think I'm done. I think I pretty much figured it out how I need the site to work. So that's what I've been working on. Other than that, nothing special. I think I'm invited by DJI for Airworks, but I'm not quite sure. So I have to figure out how that's going to work, but I want to go down there.
Awesome. Well, I'll be there as well. Yeah. So I hope you can make it. That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and overdue.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. What do you think of that upcoming announcement, the Mavic 2 Enterprise?
Mavic 3 Enterprise.
Mavic 3 Enterprise. Yeah. I hope they don't announce the 2.
Come on.
We'd be in trouble.
I think that drone is going to kick ass, but I think the M30 is also really good.
So the question is, which do you need and which one, what is not going to be in the Enterprise that is going to be in the 30?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a bit of overlap, right? I mean, the Mavic 3 Enterprise with the thermal camera, I mean, they pretty much should tick most of the boxes by now. I mean, they're getting pretty good, those drones.
That's what I'm thinking too. Hot swappable batteries on the 30, and then possibly the fast charging on the Matrice 30. But not everybody needs that. And then if you need something portable and easy to deploy, although the Matrice 30 is easy to deploy, but price wise, it'll be interesting.
Then you still only have one drone, whereas for the same money you could probably buy 2 or 3 of the DJI Mavic 3 Enterprise. So then you have hot swappable as well, and you have backup drones.
A hot swappable drone, yeah. We talked to our local police department yesterday, and they were asking us about that upcoming drone and how it was going to do compared to the Matrice 30. And I said, well, let's wait and see what the specs are, but it might make more sense to buy 2 of those rather than buy one of the other one.
Yeah, and I'm happy that DJI is coming out with this because I think the affordability of drones makes a big difference in whether first responders are able to work their budgets and reserve money for drones. And if it's 20 or 30,000, it's a heck of a lot more difficult, I think, than if it's a $5,000-$6,000 drone.
Yeah, even 8,000. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where that's priced at. So today we're talking more drones, Inspired Flights. So I met with them at their booth. We have a friend in common, Tim Wiley from Gresco, and he said, you got to go talk to these guys because they have a really cool product. So we look at the drone. It's cool. It's got a really cool design. So we'll talk about that today, and then talk to them about being a BlueUAS company, what that means, and how it's changed them. We had already a pretty good discussion at the booth, but I didn't want to ask too many questions there because I know I wanted to bring them on the show. So we're talking to Adam. He's not only the director of sales, but he is also a co-founder. So we'll be able to ask him a whole bunch of questions how the company has grown over the last couple of years and everything they've done. So I'm excited.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't remember seeing their name on the BlueUAS 2.0 list. So I wonder if they are a recent addition, and also I wonder if they can share some with us about what was involved to get on that list.
Yeah, well, we can ask those questions when he gets in. So, all right, well, let's bring him on board. All right, well, Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Haye, for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, we're very excited to be talking about drones and talking about a whole lot of different things. But typically what we ask our guests, the very first question is, how did you get into drones and how did that become a passion?
Yeah, so how did I get into inspired flight in this industry? Actually, kind of a really happenstance into it, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys. So I'm one of the co-founders of Inspired Flight. Certainly was the non-technical co-founder, did not come from a background in robotics, in UAVs. So back when I was in university at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, a big thing at Cal Poly is your senior project. It's a big push, being a primarily technical school, for you to achieve your graduation. I was a business major and I decided to concentrate in entrepreneurship. So my senior project was effectively to go to the local tech incubator and find somebody with an idea and join them and intern with them for some period of time to receive my senior project credit. So I found my co-founder, Mark Stolmeyer, who's our director of product today, and immediately had a great relationship with him. And basically by day 2 of this internship, it was no longer an internship. And I had really dove into what we were going to be trying to do at Inspired Flight. Back at that time, it was he had a couple drawings and a very basic prototype of what we originally were founded to do, which was actually be a motor manufacturer. A lot of our patents and technology is in our motors on our aircraft, which is still being used today. So yeah, really fortunate and happenstance into the drone industry. I guess my more professional background actually comes from, it was more in hospitality than it was in robotics. So not an area, not really an area I necessarily ever aspired to break into. But once I had that little stroke of luck and learned about the opportunities present and what this industry was trying to do, I was all in from day one and couldn't be more thrilled to be here a little bit over 5 years later.
5 years later, wow, that's quite some time already. So you mentioned that you guys worked on airplane motors and that was a starting point for Inspired Flight. Can you tell us a bit about how you got into drones and how Inspired Flight got into drones?
Yeah, so it really starts with my co-founder, who's kind of a robotics engineer and the true visionary behind all of Inspired Flight's products. The real genesis for Inspired Flight came from two paths. On one side, we were trying to use drones for commercial purposes. And back in 2014, 2015, 2016, your options were really either DJI or build a drone yourself. And there was two problems we found with both of those paths. On the DJI side, it was DJI is a black box. It was a closed ecosystem. We weren't able to really customize the aircraft enough to really serve the kind of more edge case applications we were back in 2015. Applications that would probably be considered very normal with drones today. And then the other side, so we went to, of course, Mark being the engineer, went to build our own drones. And the problem that we ran into there was really with the quality of components that were available on the market. We were finding ourselves having to buy 10 motors to get 4 that worked for any reliable amount of time. So our real frustration was actually stemmed from the motor side, which is why the first idea for Inspired Flight and the real frustration that caused let's do something about this was we're so frustrated with using these terrible motors. Let's create something that provides a lot of value and adds a lot of reliability to the industry. So we came out with our motor that we called the Bernoulli 3 motor. Still used on our smaller IF1200 aircraft today. And some of the advantages in there was it was one of the first motors on the market to have fully integrated in the electronic speed controller. So when it comes to things like field serviceability, maintenance, instead of having to send the aircraft back to us or get into there yourself and do some serious soldering, it takes about 10 seconds to replace a motor on an aircraft and you're back up in the air again. And then there's some additional advantages of health information we're able to collect, how heat dissipates through that motor to improve service lifetime and reliability. Yeah, and that's kind of how that was really the genesis of Inspired Flight, was really born out of frustration of what was available at the time.
Yeah. So you mentioned DJI being kind of a closed ecosystem, and then probably also the drone not being able to be used in certain very niche situations. So what are the applications for the drones that you design today?
Sure. Yeah, so the majority of our Inspired Flight's focus is in what I would call the commercial infrastructure inspection space. So using our systems to inspect a variety of physical assets, whether that's working with electric utilities to inspect transmission and distribution poles, working with cell tower companies, wind turbines, kind of the whole array of physical assets and infrastructure here in North America. So that's a large portion of our focus. I'd say about 40 to 50% of our customer base is in that application. An additional about 25% of our customer base is in what I would call the geospatial space. The majority of those users doing some sort of LiDAR application, but absolutely also have a handful of customers doing ground penetrating radar, magnetometer activities, bathymetric LiDAR, and the whole kind of surveying, mapping, GIS space. And then that other 25% of our customer base is what I would call OEM customers. Inspired Flight specializes in building open system, open architecture platforms, and we love working with companies that have some third-party technology or capability that they're looking to integrate into an aerial platform. So we work with them to really tailor the system to their specific requirement set.
So it sounds like the customers that you guys cater to are very specific. They have needs that are very different from your average drone operator, let's say. Recently, you guys introduced a new drone, the IF1200A. Can you tell us more about that drone and how that drone is ideal to service these kind of customers and their use cases?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the I-1200A is effectively our version 2 of our initial heavy lift aircraft, the I-1200 that we launched back in 2020. So yeah, this newest I-1200A, we just started delivering those systems at the beginning of August. Have got about 20 of them into customers' hands right now. But some of the real advantages in that platform for us, and some of the reasons we made some pretty unique design choices in the aircraft. The most important things for us on that aircraft were flight time, getting flight time on that aircraft to effectively lead the electric heavy lift space. Of course, you're going to get larger flight time as you go to gas, hybrid, hydrogen type drones, but we're squarely focused on the electric space. And then having a large payload capacity that is all usable under Part 107 rules was really important as well. So all 9 kilograms of the payload capacity on the I-1200A allow the aircraft to be operated under 55-pound limit. And then additionally, the third thing that we really focused on was ergonomics in the size and compactness of the aircraft. It's all designed to be one-man transportable, one-person usable, bring it on a commercial aircraft. Batteries would have to be shipped ahead via ground, but I fit 2 of these in the back of my Toyota Camry. So
there you go.
It's really just designed to be easy to use in the field and really just be a rugged workhorse for the operator, somebody that an operator or an organization can have absolute trust and confidence in.
Yeah, that's actually very. Oh, I was going to say that's actually very impressive. Having seen the drone, the fact that you can fit those, like you said, in the back of your car, that's really cool. What about the payload in here? You mentioned being kind of an open ecosystem. Can somebody bring any kind of payload onto this, or do you have a list of payloads that you work with?
Yeah. So if you had asked me that question 3 years ago, the answer would have been, sure, we can integrate everything, right? Because that's what we did to get the business off the ground. That's definitely not where we are today. We're absolutely keeping a more narrow and strategic focus on the applications and payloads we're wanting to work with. For those OEM type of customers that have some payload that they're looking to integrate into the system, we're always happy to work with customers on mechanical and electrical integrations to the aircraft. When it comes to enabling your third-party payload with software to make it really work, that's going to be on that user. But always happy to work with a customer on a mechanical and electrical integration. When it comes to kind of full-on, ready-to-fly payloads, we do have a specific list of payloads that we have fully integrated into our systems. And for Inspired Flight, fully integrated means you have full remote control over the camera, you have automatic geotagging, really what I think fully integrated actually should mean. Tends to be a different definition on who you ask in this industry. But yeah, the cameras that we most focus on, our most popular sensor suite is the Workswell Wireless series of cameras. They're higher end dual thermal and optical cameras. Customers typically using those for inspection, again, being a very common application for our public safety customers. Search and rescue is a very common application with those cameras. Then we work with a range of Sony cameras for pure optical imagery. And we've actually just in the last week, and we'll get an announcement out in the next few weeks, completed our true integration with the Phase 1 system, Phase 1 P3 camera. So yeah, nice. Those are the cameras we generally focus on. When it comes to things like LiDAR, we've pretty much integrated with every LiDAR manufacturer distributor here in the US at this point.
Wow, yeah. That's really cool.
I got a question about battery life, flight time, all that good stuff. I mean, on your site, I see it says 23 to 43 minutes. I think I can make out 2 separate batteries, which might mean that they're hot swappable. Can you tell us a little bit more about that setup?
Sure. Yeah, so right around 23 to 43 minutes, and that flight time is to a very safe reserve. So to a safe flight time reserve, obviously 43, 45 minutes at no payload, 23, 25 minutes at maximum payload. So when it comes to batteries, I will not hot swappable. That is a feature that we are working towards, but there was some very specific reasons that we did adopt and switch from a 1 battery solution to a 2 battery solution. And one of the actual, I guess, a feature that our team is really proud of on the battery system is we developed typically on batteries, even DJI aircraft today, with smart batteries, the aircraft is reading and understanding information from 1 battery, and being that all the other batteries, of course, wired in parallel, you're trusting and hoping that the other batteries are acting as they should, which of course they typically do. One of the things that we've just developed and put on the IF1200A system is a new BMS battery management that allows us to independently monitor both batteries, and then have, of course, a series of fault tree and fail-safe mechanisms for if something were to go wrong where they shouldn't, how does the aircraft react? So we've even been finding with some of our new users on the system, they're having to learn something new because they're now seeing 2 battery readouts on our ground control station, which is an incredible safety feature, but something that's a little bit new to the industry.
That's really cool. Yeah. So you mentioned open source earlier, working with open source company. I was wondering, do you work with Auterion? It seems like when we were at the show, there were a lot of companies that started to use Auterion as a third party because they're a bit more open software, open source.
Sure. Yeah, we have a fantastic relationship with Auterion. Have worked with them a ton over the past, not currently a customer or a Skynode customer of Auterion. Inspired Flight right now is focusing more on the ArduPilot ecosystem. Historically, a lot of our products have been PX4, but absolutely we continue to have a strong cadence and relationship with Auterion, and continue to work with them, and very likely see a future where Inspired Flight aircraft are running the Auterion stack, just not something that we're focused on today.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about how much this drone is going to cost? I mean, of course, depending on the payload that you choose, but if we forget about the payload and we just want the flying drone with the batteries and everything, like how much is that?
Yeah, so our smaller aircraft, the IF750, which is our quadcopter, for folks that aren't familiar with Inspired Flight, it might be more with DJI, kind of a similar size to your DJI M200, M300 aircraft. That aircraft for us is in the range of 16 to 19,000, depending on batteries and some various options. The IF1200A is going to be right around 30 to 33,000.
Yeah, and that's a hexacopter, not a quadcopter, right?
Correct. So, yeah, that's our heavy lift hexacopter.
And actually it has a
Right.
really cool design, Haya. It's got the motors. One of the motor is facing down, the other motor is facing up on the other side. So the props are actually somewhat intersecting on top of each other like this. I was really impressed. Makes it a bit more compact rather than having super tall arms. We had talked about this at the show, and I was really impressed with that design. That's really cool. So you mentioned the other drones that you have, the 750, the 1200. What's the 1200 for? Is the 1200i the new one, just an upgrade of that 1200?
So it's really it's a brand new aircraft. Very similar look and form factor to the 1200, and the payload interface is the exact same. So any of our customers that had done integration onto the 1200 had a very seamless transition into the IF1200A. And we've been providing upgrade paths and trade-in paths to a number of our IF1200 customers. But overall, it is a new aircraft. 85, one of the advantages we were most happy with was an 85% improvement of flight time compared to the IF1200. Wow. And we only increased battery capacity on the aircraft by 20%. So actually what you were speaking to right there about those design choices of the over-under propellers and some of more of the power plant and propulsion decisions we made, that was really where the bulk of that battery increase, that flight time increase came from. So couldn't be more, as the person who leads sales in customer success and Inspired Flight, couldn't be more thrilled with what our engineering and production team has put forward. It's made our lives a lot easier to support, to sell, and of course, that means our customers have that much more success.
Yeah, that sounds more than just a little bump up in capacity there. You mentioned that you can fit 2 of these in the back of a Toyota Camry, so I guess they're foldable to an extent. But you also mentioned, I think, that you cannot take these batteries with you on a flight. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. So on our smaller quadcopter, you would be able to bring the batteries on board a plane, but we're using on the larger aircraft 16,000 milliamp batteries, well over the legal limit to bring on the plane. So yeah, you do got to ship those ahead via ground freight.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the challenges of being a manufacturer and even a drone manufacturer in the United States. Like, what are some of the challenges?
I don't know if our hour is long enough.
No, it's been such a rough road. But no, we're curious. I mean, we've had a few guests on this show that actually are drone manufacturers based here in the United States. And I give all of them a lot of credit because, the United States is maybe a little less manufacturer friendly than it used to be back in the day. But if you can share with us some of the challenges that you guys faced launching Inspired Flight, that'd be very interesting to hear, I think.
No, absolutely. There's been a number of challenges with manufacturing in the U.S. and just being part of the nascent industry that is UAS manufacturers. We're thrilled to be a part of it. A lot of challenges. I'd say one of the decisions we made early on that really positioned Inspired Flight to be in a place of what I would consider success today and have some demonstrable traction. It's back in 2016 when Mark and I, when we started this company, more out of naivety than anything, we decided to do everything here in America. This is in 2016, multiple years before the geopolitical headwinds against Chinese manufacturers really came out. 2019, 2020 was really when we saw the federal government outlaw DJI and Chinese vehicles. So us not really knowing what we were getting into by saying, hell yeah, we're going to do everything in America because that's just something we believe in reshoring American manufacturing. Didn't understand the challenges we had signed ourselves up for. But now having pushed through a lot of those challenges, it allowed us to be in a position where we were able to lead into those geopolitical shifts and already have a supply chain that was America focused and allowed us to continue on with a pace of innovation, production that was really great for the company. But some specific problems that we faced in manufacturing here, bottom line, and it's a broad term and the whole world is dealing with it, but just supply chain, particularly being here in the States. There was a time even this year where we went 6 weeks without being able to ship a single aircraft due to a $2 capacitor on a $30,000 system. That shut down our business for 6 weeks. Of course, got an amazing team that did some quick redesigns around that components, and done a really great job of locking down our supply chain and maintaining minimum 9 months of forward-leaning inventory at this point. But that just speaks to a lot of the similar challenges that we face and a lot of our competitors and other folks in the industry are facing is supply chain challenges. A lot of these components, while there may be suppliers here in the US for things like motors, things like batteries, which to be clear, batteries we do not use from the US. If there are suppliers for some of these components, they're few and far between. So where that leads to, from a kind of just a manufacturing standpoint, is it ends up leading to a lot of risk in a company's supply chain, because you sometimes are finding ourselves in situations where we have no choice but to deal with single suppliers and a sole supplier, which of course you learn in your supply chain 101 class is a terrible idea. So those are a number of challenges. The part of it that we really liked was standing up a manufacturing facility here in the US. Some of the talent local to us in San Luis Obispo and has been incredible for the folks on our production team. And we're finding that just people are really invigorated to work again in American manufacturing companies, especially when we're putting out impressive technology, right? We're not stamping water bottles, right? We're doing something really incredible. So I think there's been a lot of demand, and I think just overall in America, folks are excited to be manufacturing here again and understand, especially on the customer side, what has to happen is folks understand that stuff's going to cost a little bit more, right? We're not putting out a aircraft made out of Chinese plastic. We're putting an aircraft out that is serving extremely high value applications. If something were to go wrong in that application, the consequences significantly outweigh any cost of the aircraft, even one being made here in the US. And I see the industry and the customer base and the user base of industrial drones starting to recognize that. It's more important to deal with a company that has a really strong customer support and customer success function that will be there if and when we're in the drone industry, something goes wrong. And basically just be able to have a relationship and treat us as a hardware partner as we advocate for you and your business and enable you with technologies to do whatever application you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and I can imagine, especially when you're dealing with higher end drones that are more expensive, with payloads that are more complicated and also more expensive, being able to rely on your drone and the company that's provided you with that drone becomes increasingly more important, of course.
It does, yeah, and that's been an area that us and other manufacturers, as we continue to build more and more and ship more and more vehicles and have more and more successful customers, that is just continuing the pace of adoption in the drone industry, not just for inspired flight, but across the board. I think the industry is really starting to see the technology get past a very early adopting type of stage where it's actually a scalable tool that can be used for real benefits for your business.
But as a manufacturer, right? I mean, especially if something high tech like a commercial grade drone. I mean, you have a drone that works. People are excited. They start placing orders. Now you need to have the components. You need to have inventory. You already mentioned you need about 9 months of inventory going forward in order to fulfill all those orders coming in. Are you guys self-funded, or did you choose to get investors on board to help finance and fund the growth of the business, or how did that go?
That's a great question. We are very fortunate with how we were capitalized and kind of where we are today. So bottom line, we are not a venture-backed company, something that we're very grateful for. Over the past 5 years, we've been able to really guide our own destiny and not felt outward pressure to go chase shiny things. Really allowed us to focus on building quality products, building out systems and processes and a team that can support that quality product. And now we're at a point, I think, a little bit different than a lot of other companies in the industry, where we're now going to be, where we're starting to build the bullhorn, if you will, and really starting to make some more noise from the marketing, standpoint. Whereas I think a lot of companies in this space that do take venture money out the gate, you see a lot of smoke being blown, right? You see a lot of hype on products and capabilities that may not truly work or exist as they are being marketed to. So certainly we were very fortunate with some initial angel investors, some private investors. But yeah, no venture-backed money, and that may change in the future as we work to scale, and Inspired Flight has set down a sustainable business as it exists today. So who knows what the future holds, but we've been very fortunate with our funding situation and effectively have built a business where if you were to look at the fundamentals, you would be like, oh, it's a real business and one that actually makes sense and isn't losing crazy amounts of money that would make us look like we're not going to be here in a year.
That's awesome, and I give you guys a lot of credit for pulling that off. It's not easy to run a manufacturing business in the US, I think.
No, yeah. To be honest with you, I don't know if I would do it again. I've loved every moment of it.
It can be intense, I guess.
It can. Well, you generally have two people that look at what we're doing. You have folks that look at, they ask me, what are you guys doing over here? We're a drone manufacturer. And folks are either, oh, we never want to touch drones because it's a race to the bottom, right? A lot of folks in the industry see drone manufacturing as a race to the bottom. It's going to become a commoditized product. And there's no actual enterprise value you're creating and producing drones. Hi, I see your face. You would be surprised how often we've heard that over the years. How often we've heard that. And what we found is we just absolutely do not see that as true. There are incredibly high barriers of entry to producing these types of aircraft. And when this industry starts scaling and reliability and safety of the aircraft is going to be of utmost importance, you're not going to want to work with a company that's putting out a $2,000 drone just to make a quick buck and say, good luck, right? You want a company that's going to be committed to working with you. And on the other side, there's been folks that basically say hardware isn't the sexiest business in terms of enterprise valuations, raising capital, and providing kind of a lucrative future to your company. Generally, a lot of folks lean towards software, especially when they're looking at building a really large company. So there's been people all over the spectrum, and I think we've assembled a team of incredible folks that are just motivated every day and understand what we're trying to do in the industry and for society, and are excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome.
Wow. Yeah, I applaud you as well. I think what you guys have accomplished is, and the fact that you've been doing this for a lot longer than quite a few of the people we've talked to in the past, that's a testament to the quality of the product that you have. I want to talk about the BlueUAS thing, and how did that become a thing? Kind of what was the decision? Hey, this BlueUAS UAS program is out there. Let's apply for it. And obviously, that's a big advantage being a US company. So tell us a little bit more about that program.
Sure. Yeah, so kind of going back, taking a high-level view on Inspired Flight's history, the BlueUAS program really stemmed out of the Army's SRR, Short Range Reconnaissance Program, a contract that Skydio has now won. So when that kind of solicitation came out, I think it was back in 2017, 2018, very early days of Inspired Flight, I remember having very specific conversations. Is that the strategy? Do we want to go? And I think fortunately for us now, we decided no, we're going to focus on the medium to heavy lift space, on the larger aircrafts. So of course, we weren't able to apply or be a part of BlueUAS 1.0 because that was all those short range reconnaissance drones. But as soon as that, the commercial solicitation offering or opening from DIU came out for the second round of BlueUAS, also being that about 20 to 25% of our customers are federal government customers. We saw that, of course, as a really exciting opportunity, and of course, something you want to be on the inside of the fence on. And we, of course, met the requirements, being a fully small, veteran-owned U.S. Based company that does all of our manufacturing here in the U.S. So we applied to that process. It was in the application, and the briefings process was in January of last year. So it's been about 21 months up till today. So we were fortunate to be accepted into that program. We had both of our aircraft at the time were accepted into the program. our IF1200 and our IF750 platform. Fast forward over the last 2 years, where a series of demonstrations, tests, and a large portion of the testing was focused on cybersecurity and supply chain verification on the aircraft. Just last week, actually, at the beginning of last week, our IF750 and IF1200 were officially published to the 2.0 cleared list, something that we're super excited about. And of course, we'll be trying to get the IF1200A on that list in a much shorter time frame than 21 months. But yeah, really excited to be on that. It's already made it easier for us to sell and serve DoD customers. It's basically taken away a lot of paperwork. No need to do waivers. No need for DoD operators to gain additional approval for BlueUAS.
So it sounds like with your approval to be on the BlueUAS list, it's going to be easier for you guys to grow your business within the government. Do you think it also translates and helps you to grow the business outside of the government, knowing that you guys meet that hurdle or that bar, if you will?
I think it does more for that than it actually does for us growing our business with the government, if you can believe that. It's going to provide incredible success and open a lot of doors for us to serve the DoD. And it's an incredible sales tool, but it's also a really incredible marketing tool. It's a longer discussion on whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, but really what's happened with BlueUAS in this program is the industry at large and also government agencies that aren't the DoD has looked to this program and looked at it as if it's good enough for the DoD, it's good enough for me, and we're going to adopt the same requirements. Which, to be clear, was not the intention of BlueUAS, right? BlueUAS is specifically focused on serving DoD customers. So how that's translated into the rest of the market, let's just say, again, it's good for us to be on the inside of the fence. We are seeing quite a lot of commercial companies, particularly the larger strategic type organizations, that are looking for BlueUAS drones. And also, to be clear, they're not necessarily always looking for our specific DoD BlueUAS configuration, but what we're finding a lot is us being added to that program immediately just gives a big stamp of credibility to Inspired Flight. Whether they're going to use our specific DoD configuration or our other ones, which are the same platforms, just slightly different radios, it helps speed up the sales cycle and kind of that building of rapport and trust on the customer. One of the things that we think is it's kind of funny. It's become more rare over the past few years, but of course, selling such expensive equipment, high value equipment, folks generally want demos. And we're always happy to provide demos when there is kind of a purpose to that demo, like if you want us to demonstrate the system and how we would actually go and inspect an asset or how we would go and use the vehicle. What we really never liked and what we really don't want to do is do any demo for somebody that just says, I want to see the thing fly. Prove to me that it flies. Right now we were able to before by saying, well, we've been in business for 5 years and here's a large list of references you can go talk to prove that it flies. But now we can also point to the DoD and an official government website and says, I promise you it flies and it's been validated.
It flies.
Right. The industry is starting to get a little past that point, which is good. Right. We need to be in the world of selling and delivering solutions, not selling and delivering drones.
If you step back from your current position, so forget about Inspired Flight for a second and just look at the drone industry overall, do you think there's a downside to the BlueUAS program, or do you think it's a good thing for the industry?
There's going to be a yes to both of those questions, depending on how you want to look at it. I think it's great for the industry in that commercial folks, I think America in general is recognizing the dangers of allowing our adversarial partner like China to have this technology that we really rely on. That just puts a not ideal scenario in front of America's eyes. And I think everybody's starting to realize that. We're seeing that out of the drone industry, right? The CHIPS Act, Intel bringing a factory out into Ohio, wherever it is. Reshoring of American manufacturing is a big push right now. So I think BlueUAS is really important in especially the UAS industry here in the US, with how high the barriers of entry are to manufacture aircraft here in the US, it's done a really good thing, and it's basically helped spur and incentivize and promote the US industry, and increase the velocity in which resources are available. Folks like Inspired Flight or all the other Blue UAS companies can get their aircraft submitted for government approval. So it's done a lot of good things in lifting up the entirety of the US UAS industry, and really provided a process to users, regardless of commercial or government, of there's one government-led process. It's up to you whether you want to choose to follow our path or take our direction on what we're trying to do here. But you can trust that if you use these aircraft, it's up to you to have success with the drone and figure it out with the OEM, but you're not going to run into compliance issues. You're not going to be left with a drone in 9 months where, with the stroke of the pen, a really high value product that still works and works really well, you just can't use it anymore. Right? And that was a situation we saw across the government with DJI fleets, serving extremely important high value applications that, with the stroke of a pen, no longer could be used. And that story and how that affected the industry and adoption of drones probably would lean to the not so good side. And I guess some of the negatives of Blue UAS is really the requirements of Blue UAS. It's going to create a lot of educational challenges for the industry. So one thing that maybe we want to talk about is remote ID, something that is quickly on the verge of the industry. We've gotten a lot of folks coming to us and say, yeah, we need you a Blue UAS drone. And is it going to have remote ID? And that's when we go, that's actually not possible. The requirements for a Blue UAS drone do not allow for something like remote ID to be on it, right? They're completely different applications. All right, because the specific Blue UAS configuration being sold to the DoD, is being used by the DoD, where they don't need remote ID. So that's kind of where this distinction of Blue UAS was meant only for DoD, but it's kind of spread across the industry. There's some big educational challenges present there that we're starting to run into.
So now you're going to need two different models when you have your drone approved Blue UAS. You're going to have a blue version and a non-blue version for non-government usage, right?
Mm-hmm. We will, exactly. Good thing for Inspired Flight is our government's Blue UAS version and our commercial aircraft are the exact same price. There's no difference in our commercial or government prices. But yes, there are going to be a difference on the aircraft depending on who you're selling to or to that user. Mm-hmm. Will it have remote ID? Will it not? Will it have this specific Blue UAS radio, which is much less capable than our commercial radio system, which is also government compliant, just not DoD compliant today. So a lot of nuances with Blue UAS, but bottom line, I think it is a good thing for the industry. We are Inspired Flight and the other companies in the 2.0 round and the 1.0. We're definitely guinea pigs through this process. It's been a long process, and I know a lot of improvements have been made to how companies will submit in future openings of Blue UAS. And I think moving forward, it's going to end up being a really great thing for the industry. Definitely just some challenges as this brand new process and program has been created, though.
So does this create a problem for, let's say, the Department of the Interior? I mean, they're known to be using a lot of drones. If they fly Blue SUAS drones that cannot be remote ID compliable at the same time, can they still fly those drones after September 23, or do we have an issue there?
Oh, so that's going to be one that's difficult. To be clear, right? DOI, Department of Interior, does not need to be using the specific Blue UAS configuration. They're looking to purchase and use Blue UAS drones. But for example, we work with some DOI customers. They are using our non-Blue UAS radio, which in the aircraft would, of course, be retrofitted with remote ID. So there's going to be some nuances in there. And I think especially as remote ID takes hold this month or December, the new deadline over the next year, I think it'll become clear what folks, especially in the government, need across various organizations and what they're able to use. We're really just in a state of we don't know what we don't know yet, and everybody's kind of figuring it out together.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to the next big topic, which is remote ID. The government pushed back the enforcement date, not the date that you guys as manufacturers have to comply to December, middle of December. What is the challenge for you at this stage as a drone manufacturer? Is it finding the right, because there's no device, right, that you can put inside of your drone at the moment to comply with remote ID unless you design your own technology?
Correct. Yeah, that's absolutely one of the problems. Well, I will say one of the amazing things about the drone industry is the majority of folks in it are leveraging open source technology. So there's a handful of remote ID projects that a large number of manufacturers are working on together. Because remote ID is one of those things where you just need to it's a yes or no question. Do you have remote ID or do you not? And hasn't been accepted by the FAA. There's no advantage to having a better remote ID, right? There's no inherent value that we can differentiate from another company by saying our remote ID is better than yours. It's something that the industry just needs to attack together and really work together on. And we've done a really incredible job on that. I know there's a few various projects, but the one that we've been primarily focused on is the ArchiPilot remote ID project. A couple of weeks ago, Inspired Flight, we have multiple aircraft flying true remote ID solutions right now. We're in the process of submitting our means of compliance to the FAA for approval. And we're expecting to be able to be shipping our remote ID solution in the next 1 month to 2 months. So back half of October, first half of November. That said, you're absolutely right. Aircraft need to be manufactured before September 16th to allow for kind of that retrofit. So what Inspired Flight did over the past month was effectively we pre-built about 50 systems to cover that 2-month gap where we won't have the remote ID quite ready yet. But because the aircraft were manufactured, and the FAA has very specific definitions of what it means to manufacture an aircraft, since these aircraft were manufactured before that deadline, it basically means Inspired Flight won't have to pause on shipping. And we'll be able to deliver those aircraft to customers, and they'll have 1 full year to retrofit.
Yep.
There must have been another nice challenge of being a drone manufacturer in the US, right? To jump through hoops.
For Inspired Flight, for every other manufacturer, we all faced the same battle. It was all of a sudden, you got to do this and you got to do this and have a plan in the next few weeks. So for our company, for every other company in this space, it created some fire drills, especially for our engineers. So to engineers working on this across the industry, thank you for your last month of sleepless nights.
So again, if you step back and you look at the drone industry overall, do you think that remote ID is something that's good for the industry, or do you think it's a challenge and a hurdle and a burden that's unnecessary?
Sure. So I'll keep it broad to the industry, but I'm going to focus on the commercial and industrial industry because that's where my business is focused and where kind of my view on the industry is focused. So for the commercial and industrial side of the drone industry, I think it is absolutely a good thing. I think it's the first step to expanding the adoption and air traffic incorporation of UAS in the US ecosystem. I think whether the mechanism for how remote ID specifically works could be better, could be worse, that's another conversation. It's good that we're making a step in the direction to increase adoption of UAS technologies. How remote ID affects the hobbyist side of the market and some of the other folks that, to be honest, isn't really in my purview, doesn't keep me up at night, it's terrible for them. But again, that's just not generally my focus. And of course, our competitors and the larger drone industry, just not our focus. So for vehicles that are serving valuable, critical, life-saving, potentially applications, I think it is a good thing.
Fair enough.
And there's been a lot of talk about the pilot location being shared. You sell drones that are really expensive. What do you think is the solution for your customers to, I'm going to say, protect themselves and from remote ID coming up and sharing their location?
Absolutely. That's one of the scarier parts. I was literally 2 weeks ago, I was on a call with one of our service provider customers who he was just calling me, and he was the visual observer and his pilot was doing a training exercise or a basic inspection. And all of a sudden he's just screaming on the phone. I live in San Diego. This is a San Diego customer. They're out in East County, San Diego. And he starts screaming on the phone because all of a sudden somebody's shooting at his drone from their backyard, literally trying to shoot at it with a shotgun. Of course, that's illegal. Of course, that is awful. And there are crazy people in the US. We all know that. So that's the main negative of remote ID. And I think a challenge that I certainly don't have a good answer on. I think that's going to be up to organizations and the enterprises that are rolling out these UAV programs to really attack and form a strategy for their ground-based crews to keep them safe. I think that is absolutely critical. But unfortunately, I don't think there's not one answer on that. That is an absolute issue and massive risk of remote ID, and something that we're all going to need to be very conscious of, given the state of American society today. It's not something I'm comfortable with, but it is the world we're going to have to live in.
I hear you. I mean, one of your drones with a phase 1 camera, I mean, that's going to get expensive. And then if you're filming or you're flying in some remote area and somebody walks up to you with a gun, then what are you going to do, right? I mean,
you're going to hand them the controller, right?
Yeah.
And say,
But I still don't get it quite, because they keep referring and comparing remote ID with like a digital license plate in the sky. And then you go, okay, cool, license plate. The only people who know that it's me driving that car and that I live at that address is law enforcement. But that's not the same with remote ID. Everybody can see where you are as a pilot. And I still don't understand the reasoning behind that. Anyway, if we're going to look at the drone industry, are there any from your position? Are there any overall trends that you see or that you recognize that you think are worth sharing here on this show?
Yeah, I think one of the trends I'm most excited about, I think it just has to do with kind of the adoption curve of drones in the commercial, industrial, government markets. I think over the past 3, 5, however many years, what we found is a lot of, especially the larger organizations, the companies that are going to make it lucrative and really create the market for UAS manufacturers, right? None of us are in the business to sell 1 to 2 drones to every customer. We're looking for the scalable customers and the scalable applications. I think what I've really noticed, the industry is starting to notice, is over the past few years, you have these really large strategic type organizations that would assign 1 or 2 R&D engineers to a corner of a back room, say, here's a few dollars to experiment with drones and see if maybe this works for our business. I think where we are today is we've moved out of that early adopter R&D stage where these companies are turning the drones into capital projects. And they're saying, okay, we understand how this fits into our operations. We've built a program to scale and build around this technology. And we're now willing to seriously invest some dollars to actually make it happen. So I think that's something that is obviously really good for the industry, but needed to happen for the industry. We're kind of in that point of inflection where we're certainly seeing drones going into more everyday service-based, this thing is a tool and I'm going to take it with me to get a job done, versus, wow, look at this new drone that can go inspect an asset. Let's play around with it and see if that's actually true. So a lot of maturation in the industry just over the past, I think, even year.
Which industry do you think at the moment is the fastest growing? Is it the public safety side? Is it the inspection side? What do you see? And I know it's a little bit biased, I guess, because of your type of customers that you have. But what do you think?
It is, but also, so I think inspection is the fastest growing. And the reason for that, it may not be the potentially largest, right? You have applications like delivery, some really incredible applications with UAS that we just see as holding more risk, whether that be from a regulatory standpoint, whether that be from a technology standpoint, whether that be from a public acceptance of this thing flying across your yard to deliver somebody's pizza or whatever. So we see inspection as kind of the use case that is mandated by regulatory authorities. Various physical assets need to be inspected some given time. The organizations that are doing this inspection, they've done it over the past 100 years using generally unsafe or more unsafe practices than a drone can provide, right? You're talking about putting linemen up on bucket trucks. You're talking about hazardous man hours, things that you can avoid and mitigate with drones. So due to some of the inherent benefits that using a drone provides to, let's take electric utilities or power companies, the value of those assets and the consequences and the dollar consequences of a blackout or a power failure, to us, that means this is like the prime application, prime type of industry to adopt a technology that reduces hazardous man hours, increases efficiency, and of course, lends to the bottom line of the organization. So just due to some of the kind of the more business fundamental reasons of, does this need to be used? Does this application need to be performed? And do we have a capability that accurately serves it today and are not as much worried about the variables out of our control, like the regulatory environment or BV loss applications? That's why we see this as being the most lucrative short-term market opportunity.
Yeah, yep, that makes sense. So as we're getting towards the end of the interview, we've been talking to you for almost an hour now, I think. We always end the shows with this one question, and it is, what is your favorite drone to fly? And it doesn't have to be one of the drones that you guys manufacture, but if you were going to fly a drone this afternoon, what will be your favorite drone to take with you?
Well, it's going to be one of ours because, to be honest with you, Haye, I don't fly many other drones anymore. Like I've been doing this for. I didn't come into this industry. We talked about my background coming in. I didn't come into the drone industry as a hobbyist. So I've certainly had my fun flying FPV drones, DJI drones, the whole gamut over the years. But I will say, I really the drone to me is a product that serves a specific purpose and enables really incredible effects and resource savings, efficiency savings for our customers. I'm really not the guy that flies drones for the fun of it. Whether that's a good thing or not, certainly the majority of my company is. So that's just not really something I'm typically doing. So I would say that our IF750 is definitely my favorite vehicle to fly. It flies on rails. The stability of it is incredible. And to somebody like me who also is just terrible at flying drones, let's get that out of the way. It gives me some confidence.
Yeah. So the IF750, that would be the drone you take. Awesome.
That would be the drone I take.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and experience with us today on this show. It's always a pleasure and an honor to talk to people who are in the drone industry, and I reserve a special spot for people who are actually drone manufacturers in the US. I think that's awesome. I think it's that must be a challenge, and it's very cool to hear from you firsthand what that's been like and what made you guys successful. So again, thank you so much for being on the show today, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Haye, it's been incredible watching your show over the past few months, years, and incredible to be on it. Thanks for having me.